Welcome on into the Afternoon Sports Drive Triple Play Sports Radio Network on this Wednesday edition as we just cracked open the month of June. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado's joining us on this Wednesday. Levi Peckinpah's back in the studio as well. We are live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, with it still being very unseasonably cool right now in Oklahoma for the most part. You know hot weather is going to be right around the corner, and you know it's going to get very hot. So you need to call Advantage and make sure they will come in and keep you cool during all this time. They will get you ready to go. Make sure your air conditioner is set for summer AC service. Make sure to call them and make sure your air conditioning is ready to cool your home or business all summer long. Remember, Advantage services residential and commercial, so they can help you out with whatever you need. 405-780-6637 or online at youneedadvantage.com. On this Wednesday afternoon, Tommy D is with us as well. Tom, what's going on this Wednesday?
Not much. Just kind of sitting around, watching the little Cubs and Padres on the TV. That's a pretty good matchup anyway you slice that. But we're on hold right now on a Wednesday, right? Waiting for the College World Series in Oklahoma City to start, and waiting for the Cowboys regional out in Arizona to start. So we're in the final countdown there.
Yeah, the College World Series gets started tomorrow for the Cowgirls, and then later on in the week we got Oklahoma State baseball coming up too on Friday. So we'll get into much more of that coming up here in just a little bit in the show. Tom, you also have Where Are They Now? Today, who do you have on deck for us?
Well, it's going to certainly have a regional feel to it. I was not aware of this till I kind of stumbled onto it a little bit. Now, we have played in Arizona regular season several times over the years, but this will be the first postseason trip to Arizona that we've taken since 1990. That was at Tempe. This one's at Tucson. But the team we opened with against there in 1990 was none other than UC Santa Barbara. And the guy who pitched that first game is going to be on with us, Dennis Burbank, former Cowboy pitcher. He was with us for a couple of years, came to us from Pepperdine, played a little basketball here as well. But we're going to kind of reminisce about that because we swept through that regional 4 in a row, beat Arizona State twice to get out of there, and then went on to the College World Series. There was no super at that time. So we're going to go back and look back on that, and Burbank being a California guy, he probably has a little bit more insight into what Santa Barbara would bring to the table.
That'll be good stuff coming up right after today's show at 5 o'clock, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Zach, welcome in. How's the Wednesday going?
It's going well. I had a little, went to the bank, dug around in my safety deposit box, put some stuff up, drinking a coffee. You know, enjoying the
coffee at 3:10.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong. No, you got to get going.
Little cold coffee. I got a water. I'm pulling the Robert Allen. Got me a big coffee and a big water. But yeah, I'm enjoying the unseasonably cold weather. I'm enjoying it. I will say though, I'm sure Tom can attest to this. I'm quite ready for the rain to go away so I can mow my yard. I'm ready for it to stop looking, 4, 5, 6 inches tall. That'd be nice.
I'm sure Tom could use your help to mow his yard as well.
Yeah, give me a call, Tom.
Well, there's a lot of yards out there that look like a bad haircut, right? I mean, everybody gets to that point where you need to go get it cut, but you put it off for a couple of days, right? And then you look in the mirror and go, man, I'm 3 days away. I should have gotten it cut 3 days ago because I look a little shaggy. I think your lawns are beginning to look that way. But we've had some Mays like that before, where I can remember being out there cutting it every 2 days, trying to cut it between the raindrops because I didn't want to wait for 6 days and have to get a hay baler. So I'm sure a lot of people are in that boat right now, but Oklahoma being what it is, we got about 4 or 5 more weeks of this maybe, and then the water shuts off and it gets pretty dry.
Well, I hate it so much because we've got a half acre. And the way our yard is set up, it slopes down towards the road and then kind of ditches out and creates a nice little pool. So we'll have standing water forever. And our yard is just so saturated that I'm like, I could probably get out there and mow today, but I'd get like half of it mowed before I just started making mud tracks. And that's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, man, it's a mess, and it's about to get real hot.
I'll pay I know Levi's pretty good with a weed whacker. I'll pay him to go out and just weed whack my yard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real good.
It's only a half acre, Levi.
That still comes with a good price.
I'll give you $50.
He has an expensive fee, so just be ready for that.
Yeah.
Coming up later on in the week, as we talked about Oklahoma State baseball, we have a lot of baseball we're going to get to coming up here in the show, and also we'll get to some college basketball news, all kinds of good stuff coming your way here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. As we talked about OSU baseball and the Tucson Regional will take on UC Santa Barbara. And this is a team that we talked about yesterday, Zach, with Oklahoma State, and you look at the entire region. The regional here, I think they've got a really good draw overall, and then we look at Arizona down the road as potentially being the toughest team, along with Oklahoma State to be in this regional. And Tom, would you agree that this is out of all the regionals right now, I would have to think Oklahoma State landed in a pretty favorable one.
Yeah, I thought so, and I don't know that this is the reasoning, but if it wasn't, it should have been that, Oklahoma State just barely missed the cut for hosting a regional. Now, let me go back to when these sites had come out and we didn't make the cut. Keep in mind, I don't think they were going to give 4 regional hosts to the Big 12. So you start adding up, well, what happened? Well, you lost a series that each of the teams ahead of you got swept by 1. I think we only won 2 games, against the top 3 teams in the league. So that didn't play well as far as adding up numbers. And then the 12-12 mark at the time was just 500, and you were just in a battle to finish 4th. So while we would have been great, and I think it would have been a tremendous move to have Old Brait be the host, I can't see the reason they didn't do it. Now, getting back to the other part, I don't know if they looked at it this way, but we've said all along, it's no secret, I thought Oklahoma State would end up being, if not the top 2 seed, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 2 seeds in the tournament. And you ought to reap the rewards of that. And that means you don't get sent to Arkansas. That means you don't get sent to Vanderbilt, even though there were some people who thought Arkansas was going to be the destination. I never did. That would have been – it wouldn't have made sense to go have your best number 2 seed play a top seed. That doesn't make any sense at all. You can get that later on down the line. So I thought they got a good seed. They're better than Santa Barbara. They're better than Grand Canyon. And at worst, they're 50-50 with Arizona. I know they're playing in Arizona's park, but, we play in other parks all year. So I don't know if that's going to be the difference. It's going to come down to what you got and what they've got. But, yeah, you got a pretty good deal, and I think you can get out of there and cross-match with the Oxford regional, which looks to be doable. I'm not putting them in Omaha yet because you still have to go win games. You still got to beat Santa Barbara. But at the same time, you could have a hell of a lot worse path to Omaha than Oklahoma State has with having to beat Arizona twice and probably having to beat Ole Miss twice in a super regional. There are a lot tougher paths in the tournament than that.
Yeah, there certainly are. I think that's one of the first things that jumped off for me when I saw where Oklahoma State landed. Do you think, Tom, as far as expecting who's going to be on the mound, are you leaning towards Justin Campbell?
Well, if it were me, it would be. And I've seen it work both ways over my many, many years doing this regional stuff. Even before we didn't have supers, some coaches would look at it, and I don't know what analytics does. Analytics may say, and I'm just throwing this out as an example, maybe analytics says I can get Parker Scott out there for 5 innings against these guys, and he would fit them better. But I've seen teams do this where they Mickey Mouse around with the starting rotation, and something crazy happens in the first game. Well, you've taken your ace and you said, well, I'm going to pitch him in the second game. Well, you take your second guy and put him in the first game and something crazy happens. Now you're looking at the situation where your ace is trying to keep you alive in the loser's bracket. And that's not the way you want to draw it up. So the only way you can assure that won't happen, or at least assure, quote unquote, is to take your ace and start him in the first game. Now, could we get by with Parker Scott? Could we get by with Stone against Santa Barbara? Probably. But why take that chance? Campbell's your best guy, and the most important game is the one you're playing Friday. The next game becomes the Saturday night game, which is the most important game in the regional. No, you won't have Campbell if you use him against Santa Barbara, but at least he'll get you to Santa Barbara. So I've seen coaches do it both ways, fellas. I've seen it work. I've seen it not work. I've seen coaches pull their hair out saying, I'm using my ace in the morning on the second day trying to stay alive in a loser's bracket. That's not the way you want to have it. You just take the game as they come, and I guess that's a long way of saying if it were me, I'd put Campbell out there and let's get one in the bank and move on.
And Zach, if you're Josh Holliday, are you thinking the same way?
I think you have to. I mean, is UC Santa Barbara the best team? No. Like Tom said, you can get by with Mitchell Stone, and you can get by with your other guys, but if you don't get past UC Santa Barbara, then you're playing Grand Canyon the next day in an elimination game, and that's not where you want to be right off the bat. This Oklahoma State team is peaking at the right time. Now you don't want to send Campbell out there and have him throw 130 pitches in the opening game. I think they should be able to get past Santa Barbara rather easily, but you don't want to risk it. I think you have to go out there and you need to try to get in that winner's column right off the bat, so there's a little less pressure going into that Arizona game.
Yeah, and this is a situation, we see in the pros a lot too, where it's almost you have to have everybody ready at any moment, especially on the mound. It's kind of like an all hands on deck ready situation. But I'm with you. I think you get Justin Campbell out there, if he continues to do what he does, which I mean he's been on a roll, which I would have to believe would be the case here, and at least gives you a chance, which is all you can ask for, and that's all you need with your lineup. That's probably what you're going to get. I think that's what you expect if you're Oklahoma State. Now, Tom, I know you've got to see some film and stuff like that on Santa Barbara. Or do you think, does it look like to you that they might go lefty on the mound against OSU?
Well, our coaching staff, unofficially, is leaning toward the fact that they think they'll throw McGreevy the right-hander. And if it were me, no, I would come with the lefty. But McGreevy, as mentioned in the same breath, by some, I don't know who, but by some, in the coaching profession as being perhaps a first rounder. He's a sophomore. I think he's a COVID sophomore, but he'll be back. And he's a guy that the numbers say he can. He'll leave you standing with the strikeout, but man, he gives up a lot of hits per inning. He's got traffic every which way on the base pads, and he's one of those who as Gary Ward used to call him, he's a first step pitcher. I'm always on the first step, getting ready to go out and get him. But somehow he strikes out the side or strikes out the last two and gets out of a trouble, gets out of a jam. But they seem to think McGreevy, with his stuff, who can really wheel it, would be who they see. To me, if it were me, and I'm not the coach, Andy Checkett, so he knows his team a hell of a lot better than we do. But I would think that the sophomore Boone, who is Big West Player of the Week, I think, a couple of times this year, he struck out, a hell of a lot more than he's walked, and so has McGreevy for that matter. He struck out 109. He's only walked 10, so he's going to put the ball around where you could put it in play. But he has a lot of traffic on the base pads, and when you play in Oklahoma State now, traffic on the base pads does not play well, because Oklahoma State, for what it is and is not offensively, is get them on a couple and then one big swing. I got three. I mean, they don't manufacture a lot of big rallies per se with 4 or 5 straight hits. Rarely do they do that. So if you're going to tip the fates and traffic up the base paths with Oklahoma State, then you're going to face either a McCusker or a Cabanis or somebody who could take you out of the yard, and in one swing, you're down 3. So I don't know what Checkett will do. If you're asking me, I think I would throw the left-hander because of his ability to maybe neutralize the running game, although we don't run a hell of a lot, so that's probably not a big deal. But be able to kind of keep people off balance, make them hit it to the big part of the park, and get fly balls. I've seen McGreevy. He looks like a guy who he's going to put it around the plate, and if you're going to get the bat on the ball, so you're either going to get a base hit or you're going to hit it right at somebody, but he's not going to fool you very much.
And you know what? I was looking at what Oklahoma State brings to the table right now, and I would have to think that when you are missing a guy like Houston Morrill, he's not someone that you can just immediately replace. But I've said this, and I think it kind of remains true with this team. how deep they are, and especially with the lineup and everything like that when it comes to batting, when it comes to hitting and getting guys on base. Some things that you missed with Houston Morrill. Again, I'm not saying he can be immediately replaced, but he is somebody that maybe 2 or 3 guys give you enough production, right? You are deep enough to where you can bring some of that aspect out of other guys. But the main thing you're probably going to miss is the experience with the squad, some of the leadership qualities he brings. But especially Tom, I was thinking about that the other day. He's someone who I think can be still helpful for what he can bring to the table as far as being the cheerleader for this team at this moment. But certainly when you get a roster like Oklahoma State has, they can absorb injuries like this.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I never got on the crying train like a lot of people all year long. We got players on this roster, especially this year with the COVID super seniors. That dugout was loaded with depth in all areas, and you've seen it emerge. Even though you would like to go from start to finish, and no team does this. Well, I had to have all these guys in place every inning of the year and place 56 games, and they never miss a game. Well, it doesn't happen anywhere. Every team's had injuries, so that's why you've never heard me cry and moan about their injuries, because I know they've got players who could step up and get it done. And I'm of the ilk that if you're not crying and moaning about the injuries when you win, don't cry and moan about the injuries when you lose, because you got guys who can get it done. Too many people do the crying and the moaning, and they're excuses, in my mind. But nonetheless, Golda was really the shortstop early on in the fall. Mm-hmm. They felt like he would be the shortstop. That's nothing against Huey, because I really like Huey. I think he's a hell of a player, and he's got all the intangibles that you want. But Golda was pretty much the shortstop. Now, Huey took it over, but look at what happened when Huey went out, and probably just before he went out, look who's emerged at second base, Marcus Brown.
Yeah,
the freshman. Now, this guy is he's yet another tough out in that lineup, of which there are many tough outs. Not to mention the first 2 guys in the lineup. And you know how much I've bragged about Trinkle and Hewitt. Those are guys that when I'm going against them, man, I don't like seeing them come up, because they're going to wear my pitcher out just trying to get them out, and they're not going to help you. So now you throw Brown in there, who's got a good bat and a good eye and good patience and good discipline. So people have emerged throughout this lineup, but that's not to say Houston Morrill would not have still been a great asset had he been in there. Now, pitching, we can discuss that. I mean, they never asked me, but I know he could throw it, but to me he was a guy come in and get 2 guys and let's go back to the dugout and put somebody else out, okay?
Yeah.
I never envisioned him being a 2 or 3 inning guy. And now his arm is shot where he can't do that. But we've got Golda's acquitted himself fairly well. Certainly Brown has done it at second base. They've been able to make up these holes and fill them in, where Huey certainly would be a great asset to have, especially in postseason. But I think they have moved ahead with Golda and Brown in good shape.
Yeah, whenever I was watching the games, obviously, and checking out some of the latest numbers with these guys, and all of a sudden Marcus Brown is doing what he's doing, it's like, really? We're going to add another one to this? It was kind of the same feeling for me, Tom, is like the depth, again, is just on full display, and that's been a big boost for this team, especially losing someone like Houston Morrill. All right, when we come back on the afternoon sports drive, we'll move over to college basketball. Big news out of that arena today. Oklahoma State also has a new opponent coming up for the first time in both programs' history. These 2 teams are going to meet. We'll talk about that, too, all coming up next on the afternoon sports drive.
Oh, screaming out at the top of my lungs, 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 tell the world that I found the one. Oh, my baby's hotter than the golden sun, sun. Can make my heart beat like a bass drum. Listen to me now. I've been touched by an angel.
Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado, and Levi Peckinpah are back in the studio. We're live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling in Stillwater. You can call them at 405-780-6637. one of the many competitive advantages at Advantage is you never get a diagnostic fee added on when Advantage does the recommended repairs. They will make sure and get everything you need corrected for your AC coming up for the summer at a fair price as well. So make sure you give Advantage a call or go online, youneedadvantage.com. Big news out of college basketball today. Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, announced that he will be calling it a career in college basketball after this season. He is officially retiring from Duke. And I got to say, guys, this is another, we talked a lot about Roy Williams and that news coming down the pipe, and now Coach K. As soon as I saw this, I thought to myself, we're back to what we talked about with Roy and it being a product, I really truly believe, of where college basketball is as well as where it is headed. And that is a big-time factor coming in with the transfer rules. Basically, we talked about it being like a free agency. You've got guys that are able to really switch teams now whenever they want. And I think that really it's something Coach K, also, if he were to be honest with you, is something he doesn't want a huge part of. Like, he could deal with the whole one-and-done thing. He's done that before. He's been able to adapt and get some of those best players to come through. But when it comes to the transfer nonsense, you add in some of the other things going on and where we see college basketball heading, I just think he was ready to call it a career. Mm-hmm. And it's like Roy Williams in the same sense. It's not like both of them had a ton left to prove, right? I mean, they had done a lot of great things. People arguably will call Coach K the greatest college basketball coach of all time. It'd be hard for me to argue against that one, to be honest with you, too. But he has officially announced he will be retiring after the season, so he will get through this last one here. John Shire is officially going to be replacing him. Shire I remember watching him play briefly back when he was with Duke as a player, and he frustrated the heck out of me as a Carolina basketball fan because he was good and he would always find ways to get under your skin and make plays that you were somewhat amazed at and frustrated with at the exact same time. He was that kind of player. So Coach K retiring after this season, does this come as any of a surprise? I'll ask both of you this. Any of a surprise at all?
Not
that he's
really.
Announcing this?
I thought he had one foot out the door last year. He said things and proposed things like tournaments, and let's not have a tournament, let's have everybody, he was making comments last year out of frustration perhaps. Plus he hadn't had a real great couple of years. And so this didn't surprise me that he would take this year to step aside, because again, I thought he had one foot out the door last year. And the other side of the coin is, hey, this is coaching in college basketball now is a young man's game. And I'm not talking 18, 19-year-olds, but I'm talking, if you're in the 30 to 40 range, you're a hot property in college basketball, because it requires so much energy to do the recruiting thing and keep up with your roster every second of the day. And again, I'm not saying that he couldn't do that, but eventually it catches up to you as an older coach where, you just sick of it. You're sick of the way the direction is. And I'm not speaking for him because I never heard him say this, but I got to feel like, he's not happy with the portal. He's not happy with people leaving, coming and going. He's not happy with who you have to do to recruit people. He's not happy with websites. He's not happy with people who claim to be experts on websites. All those things, I'm sure, run against his grain. But yet that's where we are in college basketball. So I'm sure he'll stay in basketball in some way, somehow. Doesn't he do USA Basketball, I think? Isn't he part and parcel of that? Yeah. And goodness, he coached the dream team. So I can't imagine a guy like Krzyzewski's going to completely, go get a hammock and put it between two trees and lay there all day long and read a book. I don't think he's going to do that. But I could see him someday admitting, you know what? I had enough of this crap. I mean, I don't like where we're going. And since I can't change it, I got two choices. I either adapt to it or I get out, and he got out.
Yeah, and Zach, I think that's what he was saying is that he's 74 years old, right?
Yeah.
There's not really time to adapt. To me, this is the only, if you either attempt to make it work, which maybe half-heartedly it does for some time, for some part of a season, but not sustained, I don't think at this point. So really his only option probably, if he really was sick of it and tired of the way that it's headed, it was probably like, look, I'm going to hang it up.
Yeah, and I think you hit it. I mean, he has nothing to prove. It's not like he's pushing, what is it? I think he's pushing 80, and he's pretty old.
74.
It's not like he's, early to mid 70s and he's never won a national championship. He's just a middle of the road coach. I mean, the dude's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, I'm surprised, he's one of those guys. It's like he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And it doesn't surprise me like Tom, I'm not going to say that he kind of mailed it in last season, but you could tell with, the way their season went last year. I mean, before the season started, he's like, "Oh, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't. Let's just call this one off. Let's postpone it. Let's do this. Let's do that." Trying to do everything he could to not play this season. And so for me, like, I'm not surprised that he announced. I'm surprised because it kind of seemed to come out of the blue. That's the only surprise for me. But with the direction of the game's going, like, I wouldn't be surprised in the next 2 to 3 seasons you start to see some of the older coaches get out of the game, because it's not like I like the transfer portal to an extent. I don't like this free-for-all. I'm not a fan of you can play 1 year and then transfer and be immediately eligible and then transfer and then be eligible. Like, I'm not a fan of that. I do think the transfer portal is a good thing for college basketball, in the sense that if a player's not happy, he can leave and he can be recruited by other guys immediately without having to, trying to put out resumes and stuff. But I will say I'm not a fan of this Wild West thing. So it doesn't surprise me that he got out. And like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if you see guys like Boeheim get out in the next year or two, and some of the older coaches as well, because it goes. I mean, it's just like football. I think Lincoln Riley said it last week or earlier this week. I think you're gonna start to see the decline of high school recruiting. I think you're gonna start to see, we'll bring in a high school kid if we can't get who we can out of the transfer portal. And I think this year you'll see high school recruiting, and I think maybe in the upcoming 22 class you'll see high school recruiting. But once you get to like 23 and 24, it'll dwindle. I think you're going to see a lot of transfer portal recruits, and I don't blame him for getting out.
And you know what? He might have been planning this for a while now, maybe even into last year. But I really have to think, Tom, too, if you remember this last year, Jalen Johnson, who was one of their top players coming in, called it quits. Like, it was like midway through the season, right? When they weren't having a very good season by any means, and they weren't going to make the tournament and all this. He decided to call it quits and focus on getting into the NBA draft.
You'll see that a lot more, too.
Yeah, that's going to happen a lot. I would have to think that maybe even that right there kind of left a sour note for Coach K, and maybe push the other foot over the edge, if you will, at this point.
But being what recruiting is, it is still a dirty business, and no matter who stands around wanting to shine it up, it's still not that way. And I would imagine there are a good many schools went after the same guys that Krzyzewski's going after, which saying, hey, Duke's a hell of a place, but we hear he's not even going to come back. We hear he was unhappy last year, and he had a player leave. Do you really want to go to that place where it's not very stable? And schools hear that, and their administration. And no administrator is going to come to Mike Krzyzewski and say, "Hey, you need to book it. We don't want you around anymore." Obviously, that's not ever going to happen. But he is smart enough to understand his age, his uncertainty, maybe his unwavering approach to the portal, maybe his overall approach to young kids. Probably didn't play well for him. It did for many, many decades, but it probably wasn't going to play well in the near future, because, as I said, this is a young man's game, and he probably saw the handwriting, and he said, look, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. But at the same time, and I disagree with Zach. I mean, I don't like the portal. I think the portal is the worst thing that ever happened to college athletics. And the part about it is that I don't like is I can bring Levi in. Levi had no scholarship offers, but I bring him into my program, and I work with him for 2 years and make him into a halfway decent player, and then one day his buddy over in Pawhuska calls him and said, you know, why don't you come over here and play? And he's got no more loyalty to what we did for him for 2 years, and he's gone. And you know what? If you're given that opportunity, I don't blame the kids, because those people who voted this in, and we're talking about institutions who voted this in, not 3 people in Indianapolis, it's not 3 people NCAA, it's the entire body. They didn't see, either they didn't see this, didn't care to see it, but this has created havoc of the nth degree. And now you got kids, like on the women's side here, Asbury books it at the last minute and leaves the women's program here. And maybe that didn't get as enough, as much attention as maybe somebody on the men's side, but that's just as injurious to the Cowgirl team that she just books it for whatever reason. I don't think kids should have that opportunity. There's no loyalty involved. I grew up in a day where you started something, you finished something. But that's not there anymore, and that's what this great portal has done, where there's no conscience. People come and go, and if that's what college athletics wants, and obviously they must, then they can deal with the consequences, and consequences will be you're not going to recruit high school kids anymore. You're just going to wait till the portal list rolls up, and then you're going to call them when their names are in the portal, and you'll bring in people from Syracuse and Texas Tech, like we did here.
Yeah, no, I think we're certainly leaning that way as well, getting really, really close to that if it's not already here. And the ACC is going to look really different. In a couple years now, you're going to have no Coach K, no Roy Williams. Who would have thought that Jim Boeheim would be the last one standing in the ACC out of all coaches? I think that's pretty incredible. And look, I will say this as well. I respect Coach K. All right, I think it would be dumb to say I didn't, because it would be hard not to for everything he's accomplished and what he's meant to the game. But here's the difference, all right? Now that Coach K has officially announced he will be retiring after the season, I get to have one more solid comparison, if you will, to him and Roy Williams, because they got to go hand in hand with everything when we talk about them, and everybody the same way. Roy announces at the end of the year. He's like, I'm done. He announced on April Fool's Day. We all remember that. Thought it was a joke at first. No, it wasn't. Then we talk about it, and then we move on and find out Hubert's the new coach, all that stuff. Well, Coach K, it's been this way the entire time he's been a coach. He needs attention one last time. Okay, so he announces it now. He's going to get the huge send-off. Every game's going to be a big deal. We got to throw the Duke parade coming into this season with full capacity back and everybody back to celebrate it. And to me, that's just such a Duke thing. That is such a Duke thing to do. Let's send him off. We can't afford to don't let him say in the offseason, I'm done, guys. Sorry, I won't be coming back. No. We got to have the parade for one more season. I mean, am I wrong? That seems like such a Duke thing to do.
No, absolutely. Because he's the guy, and I don't blame him. I mean, that's the thing, is he's been around for so long. How many national championships has he won? How many guys has he put into the NBA? How many gold medals has he won? I think it's only fitting that he says, you know what, we're going to go one more year, because it is a Duke thing, and I don't like Duke basketball, but I got a hell of a lot of respect for Duke basketball and Coach K. So I think it's only right that he goes around and he gets honored for what he did for the game, and will continue to do for the game after that. I get your saltiness, Mr. Bandwagon North Carolina, but that's okay.
Bandwagon?
That's okay.
You're
from Missouri.
So it's a complete opposite of band. I didn't join the fan base a year ago. It was ingrained as a small child. So.
Hey, they're good. I want to cheer for them, Daddy.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's exactly the opposite.
I find it
Come
interesting that Mr. North Carolina was so against this, but you proposed on this radio show that the Cardinals bring Pujols back so he could have one more year of going around the league on his final get-go with the Cardinals and have a farewell tour. So it didn't bother you to have him in there. It didn't work out, but it didn't bother you to have him there. But that's your North Carolina bias coming out there.
It wasn't going to even be like a farewell tour for Albert. It was going to be he still had a lot to contribute possibly to a team. If they had a designated hitter opening spot for him, then it was going to be kind of a hand-in-hand. To me, this is Coach K saying it's not even going to be as much of a, what's he going to bring from a coaching standpoint. Every single game is going to be the send-off and the retirement tour. That's what it's going to be next year, 100%.
And what's wrong with that? What is so wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it. I'm just saying that it is exactly the Duke thing to do.
Well,
Roy
I think
Williams,
it'd be
Roy Williams didn't need that. Coach K did.
Hey, other schools, Norm Stewart got a farewell tour.
Sure.
When he was, I mean, this just goes on everywhere, and they get presents for every team they play when you play them for the last time. So I don't know if there's anything wrong with that. The only thing about Krzyzewski and I have to preface this, I have never been to one of his practices, never have. But I've talked to a number of people who have. And Krzyzewski's not the nice guy on the credit card commercial all the time.
No.
And he's completely opposite of what you see, whatever that credit card commercial was that he did.
Well, and he should be.
But he was successful in that way of coaching, just like Izzo, just like Roy Williams, just like Bill Self.
And Tom, is it fair to say that part of the game is also kind of fading away with these coaches?
Sure. I mean, now you get kids who go crying home to mama when you yell at them. And that bothers me too, Or they jump in the portal because they want to go someplace where they don't yell at you and they hug you all the time. That to me is not a good reason just to jump on a portal, which happens now. So I'm totally against that way of thinking, but that's the way I was coached and that's the way I did coach. I didn't give a damn whether they ran home to mama or not. If they didn't want to play, then I didn't want them around. But that's not today's society. They're soft now. And I don't know the Krzyzewski or Izzo. I've never been around Boeheim, so I don't know what kind of guy he is off the court. But generally speaking, these old-timers that you see, and I'm throwing Bill Self in the mix as being an old-timer, he's been around a while, they're not the guys that you see at 3:30 or Tuesday through Friday in practice. That's not the guys you see. And I don't know that today's kids, as soft as they are, could take that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think it's a part of the game that is soon to be extinct when it comes to coaching, for sure. So last thing then here real quick before we take our break. With Coach K officially calling it quits with Duke after this season, do you guys buy, because you kind of already said you don't think he steps away from the game as a whole, but could this possibly be any sort of transfer to the NBA for Coach K? We just saw the Celtics situation. I think it was late last night when Danny Ainge is stepping down, and you have Brad Stevens moving. So is there a potential spot maybe even there or anywhere in the NBA? Do you think that at the 74-year-old Coach K is going to actually pursue, or is this just I'm going to call it quits and it's my retirement?
Yeah, I think he's seen enough NBA players to know that that's probably not his gig.
Well, that, and if he were 15 years younger. I think he's at the end of it. I think he's like, you know what, and I think he'll continue to do USA basketball.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not, and I would have to think he's going to have a Bob Stoops type role at Duke. He'll stick around and be a lifetime special advisor, and they'll make him a deputy athletic director or whatever, and he'll have an office there. But I don't think he's going to the NBA. If he were going to do that, he'd have done it 10, 15 years ago when he still had some tread left on the tire. But I will say, in a couple of seasons, I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up coaching a high school team, or he's coaching and doing something else on the side, because I'd have to think you do it long enough, you're going to miss it after a little bit.
And I don't know if he had what his family. I don't know if he has grandkids. I'm assuming he does, but I don't know that for a fact. But there's that factor as well. I mean, maybe he wants to hang out at his grandkids' games and do that.
Like Lon Kruger.
But I just don't think he's the kind of guy, though, who's just going to completely cold turkey basketball. I mean, again, USA basketball is the most obvious thing. He still is. If he's not doing it actively, he'll certainly be an analyst or be a consultant for that particular brand of basketball. But I could him going to the NBA with his we're going to do it my way thing. You got the antithesis in the NBA. The players tell the coaches what to do. So
I mean, you got LeBron James leaving the court with 6 minutes left to go in the game.
And LeBron James calls all the shots. So
My goodness.
So that's what you got in the NBA, and I can't see that just from a distance. I can't see that being parallel with a Mike Krzyzewski.
Levi, let me bring you in on this real quick. Do you see him making any type of move to the NBA?
No way, shape, or form. I'm kind of with Zach. If this was like 2005, 2006, where there's definitely a little bit of tread left on the tires, mainly when there's a lot of time left on the tires, then I would give the move. But at this point, with everything that Coach K has accomplished and how old he is, ready. It's time for him to ride off into the sunset and go down as one of the greatest coaches in college basketball, not just college basketball, basketball history, and enjoy what time he's got left. He'll still be around basketball. There's no way, shape, or form. He's going to be around somewhere. I assume Team USA, he'll be involved with that. But with the college scene, it's time to put a break to that. This will be the last season, the ride off into the sunset. I think everybody will be happy with it. I'm just hoping the schedule's going to be like the greatest hits of Duke in the past, whatever, since Coach K has been there, and you get some of the, like, at least in the non-conference, some big matchups that you saw way back when. And so that way it's going to be like, literally, you're going to be going through the pages of Coach K.
Hey,
I think that'd be fun.
Duke will do what Oklahoma State does. College basketball comes up with any kind of title they can create to get somebody around.
Absolutely.
And I have never seen anything like that in my life. Back we used to have one coach who's a head coach. We had 3 assistants. That was it. But now you got 7 other people who have titles. So I would imagine Duke is creative enough to get Mike Krzyzewski a title, an office, a phone, and maybe a credit card. Whatever it is they give him to stay around. But I don't think he'll need the credit card. I think he's made enough money. He won't need that.
No, he can do whatever he wants with them at this point, and I'm with you guys. It wouldn't make sense to go to the NBA. I think if that were the case, he would have already done it by now. It would have been a couple years ago or earlier than that where he would have made the move. But certainly a legacy that he'll leave. I mean, like I said, I can respect that. He is one of the best to ever do it. So it's going to look a lot different. College basketball it really is not only the game, but the coaches and the faces are changing before our very eyes. Coming up next on the afternoon sports drive, we'll finish up this first hour and take a look at a new team on Oklahoma State's basketball schedule coming up next year. Coming up next, afternoon sports drive.
Showed you true colors, I don't like what I see. Story keeps changing, I know what that means. Know what that means, I know what that means. How'd you go from being that somebody I believed into being someone doubting me behind the scenes? Can't forgive or sorry that I ain't never received. I mean, least you could have done was gave me an apology. But you're so prideful, prideful. Taking what you need, then blame it on me, man, that's all.
Welcome back in, afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado, Levi Peckinpah. We're live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 405-780-6637. And now's the perfect time to call Advantage for that pre-hot weather service on your home's air conditioning system. For all the summer cooling you need, go online to youneedadvantage.com. All right, so yesterday we found out that OSU basketball will take on Xavier next year in the Big 12 Big East Challenge. This is one of the teams that Oklahoma State haven't faced. Like this is a brand new matchup right here with these two squads. Last year, obviously, Xavier only had a limited schedule. They went 13-8. They went 6-7 in the Big East. And Oklahoma State, as we know, with those 21 wins and into the tournament. Xavier, though, was a team, as I told you, Zach, especially over, I'd say, the last decade, maybe before that, too. They just kind of had the when you thought of Xavier, you thought of March Madness, you thought of them being a part of the postseason in college basketball. But it is always cool to see a new opponent, especially when you're able to throw to a team like Oklahoma State, which, as we know, there's still some question marks coming into this next year. How do you respond in the first season without Cade Cunningham? How does this team look with some new faces? How does Avery Anderson control the reins up there at the top with Isaac Likely and company? And, of course, we're all still awaiting word, too, on what the NCAA is going to do. So there's still plenty of stuff going on with OSU basketball, but always cool to know, and especially in these matchups, the Big 12, Big East, who you're going to play. Xavier would be, I think it's going to be a fun matchup.
Yeah, super solid. I was excited. Tom would have a better answer than I would. I don't know exactly how much the universities or the programs have in the way of say of who they'd like to play. I'd have to think maybe just a little bit, but I'm excited about this matchup. It's like we talked about yesterday when it was first just reported that it could potentially be that opponent. When you think Xavier, you think solid Big East opponent. You think basketball. Now you don't think blue blood, but when you think Xavier, that's all you think of. You think of college basketball. They're always in the mix to be one of the better teams in the country year in and year out. So I'm happy with it. I like that they're bringing in a solid opponent for this. I like the fact that that they're bringing him into Stillwater. That's the way the draw was, but I like that they're bringing him into Stillwater. It's an opponent that I think should do well, depending on how the talent level is this year, and I think it will be pretty good. Obviously not like Cade Cunningham, but I think they'll have a solid season. That it should be an opponent that should fill seats, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
I was surprised, to be honest with you, fellas, that when I first heard that we have never played them before.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know why. I mean, but people think I remember every game we played for 30 years.
You don't remember that?
No, but I would have
okay.
thought somewhere along the line we would have come across
into
it.
them.
Yeah,
either
some
tournament
non-conference
or some,
tournament
even
somewhere.
just an in-conference or out-of-conference tournament.
Hey, are y'all surprised that they missed out on the opportunity to book Texas versus Marquette?
Not surprised, Levi. Super disappointed.
Well, they had that chance.
We talked about that yesterday, man. Could you imagine bringing Shaka back in with Marquette? My God.
I don't think that the conference checks in with every coach. I don't mean that, but there certainly is a conversation about here's the talent, here's the matchup that are being proposed, and as far as Xavier is concerned, this is not the Xavier of 10, 15 years ago.
No,
right?
no.
So,
No,
I mean,
absolutely
if you're entertaining that thought, Zach, you're way off base. They're not. As
No,
good as they
I'm
used
not.
to
I'm
be.
just saying when you think about the history of Xavier,
And just like Marquette, and wasn't the Marquette of old that we played. That was most.
but it looks good on a resume.
I don't know.
Like the fact that
I don't
you're
know that
bringing in
Marquette
someone
did
like
much
that.
for your resume last year. They were under 500. I don't think they helped us at all.
Well, not down the stretch, but early
Well,
on in the
overall, they didn't have a good year. So what I'm saying is, you don't get carried away with a name. This
No,
is
I'm not.
This is not a Xavier team of 10 years ago. But you do have a Big East team that kind of majors in being physical and having a big guy and push and shove, and we're going to use all the fouls we've got, and we're going to make sure you don't get any easy baskets, all that kind of slow down kind of stuff. But Xavier is a team that one time was a perennial. I mean, was in the tournament somewhere, but they've fallen off a bunch, and I don't know that they're going to make it up in 1 year when they come in here. So you need to be careful with how much you push this thing, because Marquette was supposed to be a great team, and they were way the hell under 500 all year after they left us, or after we left them there. And that was one of the most embarrassing situations I've ever seen. They still don't know how to attack a 2-3 zone. I mean, they all these days have gone by, they still don't know how to do it. But
Yeah, that was bad.
But I would imagine that Xavier has its plan and knows how to play physical basketball. So you will get two styles of play. Oklahoma State could be physical at times, but not as physical down low as Xavier likes to be year in and year out. So there'll be all kinds of contrasts drawn when this team comes in. And who knows how good each team's going to be. What's the date on that? Is that in December?
I don't think there's a date yet. Everything is still kind of up in the air.
So if it's really early, I mean, I don't know how each team's roster is going to look.
Isn't that when they played the last one, though? I think it was like December 14th or something.
Early. That's why I said that, but I wasn't
yeah, it'll
sure.
be the first or second week of December, I think.
And there are, and the Texas Marquette's one came to my mind right off the bat. I mean, they had a great opportunity to bring two of the schools back together. And I don't know if there was a resistance voice there or not. Who did Texas end up with? I don't even know who they ended up with.
They ended up with Seton Hall, and it is so they in the release. I just skipped over it. It's December 5th.
Okay.
I didn't see the date before, but it's December 5th.
And that'll be pretty early. That'll be pretty early for both teams, just like the Marquette game was pretty early for both teams. If you go back to it, and both teams are going to still be in a. Let's see how we're going to do and how we're going to get along with this lineup here. But again, Xavier, I don't know how much excitement that brings to the today's fan. Maybe to old timers it does, for sure. I would think the older set remembers Xavier, but I don't know if you can go out and hit the 20-somethings and they'd know who Xavier was. But maybe they did. Maybe the casual observer would. But if it's a home game, and I'm sure there'd be a lot of hubbub about it, and if we're going well, there'll be a lot of people in the arena. If you really wanted a tough opponent and you wanted to really test yourself, there's probably a lot more matchups in the Big East that you could have been assigned to really test yourself from an X and O viewpoint, in my mind.
Yeah, it's by far I think the best one's going to end up being Villanova Baylor. Baylor's going to be a different look team in some aspects too, but still.
And if you're curious, that's a Sunday game. That'd be Sunday.
Yeah, well, of course it would be. They'll throw that on a Sunday, and you have an opportunity to see the last year's national champion coming in against always a really solid Villanova team, so that'll be fun. All right, we got to take a break. Come back up on the afternoon sports drive in hour number 2. We will get into some buy or sell here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
And I don't know how we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it rains, you'd rather make it snow. Both you and me know we gotta let it go. Laying on the ground, wonder why it's so cold. How we make it out when we make out on the low. Even if it
Again, afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Hour number 2, Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado, and Levi Peckinpah. We're live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 405-780-6637. Remember, you can also depend on Advantage for spring duct cleaning and healthy, safe air quality products for inside your home or business. And everything you need to know can be found at youneedadvantage.com. The warm months are here. So make sure you have your AC unit prepared to make you and your business or your home comfortable during the summer months ahead. To get started off in this second hour, we're going to get into some buy or sell.
Are you buying?
I'd buy that for $1.
Or are you selling?
You pick up the phone and you sell, sell, sell.
This is Buy or Sell on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Make money, money, make money.
It's buy or sell, afternoon sports drive. Triple Play Sports Radio. All right, so I'm going to set my total number of runs for Oklahoma State and UC Santa Barbara on Friday at 8.5.
So combined.
Combined.
Okay.
That's the total for the game, 8.5. Over, under on 8.5 total runs.
I would probably take the over. I think Oklahoma State's clicking at the right time. I think they're playing really well. And I think Oklahoma State could have at least 6 or 7 runs, and I would have to think that UC Santa Barbara can combine for 2 or 3. So, I mean, if you're looking at 7-3, 7-2, that's 9, 10. So I'll take the over. I think they can. I think they could at least combine for 8. So that's an under. But I would probably take the over on that. I think they could. I think 9 is very doable.
Well, it better be over, or we'd probably be talking about not necessarily a good start because these guys, Santa Barbara, they give up an average of 6-7 runs a game. So, if we're not in that vicinity offensively, now can they score that much? I mean, you're using their conference, right? Big West kind of stuff. I don't know if you can look at numbers and really come to a conclusion. But, they'll give up 3 to 4. So, I mean, if averages were right on, then you would think this game would have somewhere between, 8 and 10 runs combined, I would think. If it doesn't, Oklahoma State's on the low side. Now, that won't bode well because most good teams have gotten after them, even with their pitching, and been able to muster and carve out 6 or 7.
Yeah, no, I'm also going to take the over. This is an OSU lineup that we talked about. UC Santa Barbara has not faced that quality lineup this year, and they're in for it shouldn't be a shock, but they're in for a whole new dynamic when it comes to facing hitters. And with this OSU team, we've mentioned the depth. They have so many guys that are available, that are able to get on base one way or the other. They're hitting well with runners in scoring position, so I expect that to fall into place against UC Santa Barbara, regardless of who they throw out there. I understand completely. This is a good team, like you said yesterday, Zach. They're here for a reason. But Oklahoma State had got a really good draw here as that 2 seed, and I'm expecting the offense to continue to roll as they have for the most part of this season. And we're going to see some familiar names making big plays. I mean, all the way through. That's what I'm expecting from start to finish.
That's the thing. Like they're a good enough team to make the tournament, So I mean, it's not like you're going out and you're facing Arkansas Pine Bluff by any stretch of the imagination. I don't expect a run rule type of game, but this isn't. If you go through their schedule, and I know Tom, you look at the good teams that they faced, and they didn't fare well. They took 2 out of 4 against UCLA, and I think it was Oregon. Is that who it was? Oregon swept them in 4 straight games. So I mean, when you go up against talent, of the Power 5 variety, I don't think they really have a shot.
The only thing that regionals do this to you over the years, the only thing that you stay reserved about is they don't have to beat us 3 out of 5. All they got to find a way is to win one game, and that might be their best shot of the whole regional, that they beat Oklahoma State. So that's the thing that you hold your breath on a little bit, that, that one day, whoever they throw, whether they throw the lefty Boone or the righty McGreevy, that they have a day of the year where everything that's hit is hit right at people. We hit into double plays. They make great plays defensively, and they score, just enough runs to win. Now, that's not out of the question. That happens across the country every year in that first game. And 2 and 3, by nature, are not that far apart in terms of talent by nature of the seed. Now, we know that's not always reality either, right? A Big West is not Big 12. But overall, I mean, Oklahoma State should have a comfortable day if all their parts of their game work. But the only reason you kind of hold out a little bit and not just go hog wild is that one game in baseball can be how hot that guy is on the mound. If he has a career day and you have a frustrating day where you don't hit it well and they just eke out enough runs to win, that may be the highlight of their year, but you'll be the expense of that highlight, and you don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We talked about it a little bit. Probably going to see Justin Campbell out there in Game 1. You really want to set that tone early, and you look at the other relievers that are behind Campbell. Oklahoma State is throwing pretty well. So buy or sell that whoever Oklahoma State sends out there through 9 innings combines for 12 or more strikeouts.
Well, these guys strike out about 10 times a game on average. And again, I hate throwing these numbers out because if they were playing in the Big 12, that might be 14. I don't know, but nonetheless, I mean, they don't get strike out all that much. In fact, their numbers are less than what we do per game, or they're right about what we do per game. I don't know. You would think that this with Campbell, and let's just say he goes 6. All right, I'm just throwing numbers out. He's usually a 6 in the bank, and he may go 7. And you're bringing in, say, Cale Davis to bridge it. He's a power guy. You're bringing in Stanley to finish it. He's a power guy. Between those guys, you're probably going to get 4 strikeouts in relief, and Campbell could probably get you, 6 or 7 on his own. So, it's hard to predict how this is all going to go. But on paper, Oklahoma State's pitching should overmatch their hitting.
Yeah, I'm going to buy. And Justin Campbell, if he's the guy, he's going to go out there and he can be at times, as we've seen, inching towards that 10-plus strikeout range when he's on. If he goes 7 innings, that wouldn't shock me at all. If those numbers follow. And like Tom said, that's exactly what I was going to say, talking about Brett Stanley in specifics later. He's a guy that's good for it too. And this is a UC Santa Barbara team that does strike out a lot. They're coming into it. I think the pressure's on here. Obviously for Santa Barbara, they want to make it to where they come in and want to flip the script on Oklahoma State. But it's a tough task. Not only do you have to deal with 1 through 9 and the ability to get on base and explode for runs at any time, you got to deal with the pitching. And Justin Campbell is a guy that not a lot of teams are going to have a lot of success, and UC Santa Barbara isn't one I would pick to have a lot of success. So I think they strike out a lot here, much more than maybe even putting the ball in play at times. So give me that 12-plus over 9 innings for sure.
Yeah, same. I could see that too. I think you're probably going to see about 3 pitchers. I could see Campbell going out there and getting 8, 8 or 9. And then I think you look at who they're bringing in relief. I think it's very, very plausible that they could combine for 3 or 4 depending on. So I'll take 12 on the dot. So I'll buy.
So with Major League Baseball going on right now, since coming back from COVID and all that, Tatis Jr. has been the talk again, right? He's the cover boy. He's the guy everyone's got their eyes on. Last night, now dealing with another injury. They've used it, the term of midsection tightness is what he was experiencing now. And this is the second time now with an injury. Second time he's been dealing with one this year on top of the COVID stint as well. And we've already seen him injured before in his career, unable to complete a full season. So buy or sell that Tatis Jr. does ever complete a full season of Major League Baseball without dealing with an injury.
I would sell that, and it does, I don't even know if it's necessarily a knock on Tatis Jr. But I think it's more of how baseball is going nowadays. You look at pitchers and there's pitch counts and you look at load management. Well, we got, how many games do we have? Okay, well, I really think and it's mainly like personal trainer type stuff. Like, hey, listen, we're paying you a ton of money. If you feel any kind of tightness, if you feel any kind of stiffness or soreness, well, we don't want to risk it. You go back 15 years and my back's a little stiff. Well, maybe you slept wrong, or maybe you tweaked it getting out.
Well, Levi, we were listening, and I don't know where Zach went. There he is. He's back now.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we lost. But yeah, I would sell that Tatis ever plays a full season, and it's more of a load management thing, and it's not even Tatis. It's just players today in general having a load management issue, and so I would probably sell that. And it like, again, it's not just Tatis. I think you're going to have a lot of players that are setting out games for a tight back, or a tight ankle or this or that or whatever. So
that guy who gets paid a lot of money and refuses to come out of the lineup, despite the fact his agent and or trainer and or head coach and or general manager want to sit him for 3 or 4 days, they're a vanishing breed. And I don't think I've ever seen as many oblique injuries as I've seen in the first 60 games of this year. Not only pitchers, position guys, the oblique is now the word, right? That's a tightness in the side and a pull muscle here and there. And I understand the money end of it. If you're paying somebody like Tatis the money you're paying him, you're going to try to protect him as much as you can. And in the grand scheme of things, if you sit a guy 4 or 5 games and you're still playing 162, or he ends up playing 140 of them, just say that, you probably got your investment, right? I would think. But and I'm with Zach in this regard, and I'm old school in this one. We've come completely around circle now, and I'm not sure every player believes it should be done this way, because I think you still got some tough-minded dudes who don't want to come out of the game. But I think the system is such that they're not given much choice. They're thrown on the IL right off the bat, just to make sure that our prized possession is okay when he comes back. That wasn't the case 15 years ago. And you would have had to fight some of these guys literally, knuckle to knuckle, to tell them, you're not going to play these next 2 days because you got a tightness in your arm or you got tightness in your leg. They might have decked you right there because they signed on to play 162 games, and they don't want you coming in there telling them they're not going to play. But I think the system forces a lot of this, and whether Tatis wants to play, doesn't want to play, whatever, I think the system probably won't permit him to go a whole season. No.
Yeah, and then I'm doing the same thing. I'm buying that he won't ever get that in, and for pretty much the same reasons. A part of it too is because of the style of play that he engages in. I mean, he has a very violent swing. He everything he does in the field is quick, sharp movement. There's a lot of things that will cause these quote-unquote strains and pulls and things like that.
So what you're saying is he's the Tiger Woods of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be susceptible to injury with the way that he plays and the way that he moves on a daily basis in a game that maybe doesn't even require all that much of it, but we know that's just how he is. That's how he plays, and he might have to make adjustments at some point later on in his career to avoid that, but it's also, like you guys detailed, look, these teams are with big-time players and a lot of money invested. As soon as you hear, he says, got a little tie right here. Well, we're going to take you out. It's precautionary, and they even said that with this injury here, Fernando Tatis with this midsection, it was precautionary, and of course it is. I can understand that on some level. That's kind of where we are with the game in general. But you mix all that together, and that equals Fernando Tatis Jr. really not getting through a full season without some sort of injury, as much as I think we all would like to see that. And as a Padres fan, look, you're probably holding your breath at this point during every swing.
Yeah.
And, with the way things are going, it's like, man, I hope when he unloads on this one, he doesn't pull anything, or he's not out for a couple of days because of some tightness or anything like that. And that's unfortunate. I don't want to bring any negative light here on Tatis Jr. because I think he's great for the game personally. But it is an issue where you're dealing with players, and it's not just him. There's a bunch of guys that are susceptible to this with the way that the game is played right now and the way that coaches treat these guys.
Well, yeah, and I'll be curious. They have so much money invested in it. And like Tom was saying, and I said it while we were out, you go back 10, 15 years and, a tight calf, maybe you just got a Charlie horse while you were sleeping. But nowadays, a tight calf, if you take that first step off a second heading to third and you feel a pull, we'll lose you for 2 months, so we're not even going to risk it. But I'll be curious to see how teams start to handle that moving forward, because if I'm the Padres, you finally start to play some good baseball because you finally have some talent. You're no longer one of the worst teams in the league. Well, if you're going to set Tatis Jr. for 2 or 3 games, if I'm a Padres fan, like just a casual baseball fan, I'm going for Tatis Jr. Like, I just saw a photo. It's a bobblehead night, a Ronald Acuna Jr. bobblehead night in Atlanta. There's like 3,000 people lined up outside the gates, and the gates don't open for like another hour.
Yeah.
Fans go nowadays. They don't go because they've been a fan of the Braves or the Padres for decades. They go because of these explosive players, and if they're not going to be out, attendance is probably going to drop a little bit. So I'll be curious to see how they handle that moving forward.
I have nothing against Tatis, but I hope he doesn't play till next Tuesday because the Mets go out there for a weekend.
Oh, so that's what it is. He's got that's the thing. He's Pete Rose in it.
No,
he's got money on the Mets.
I'm pulling a Wheeler sham. It's the North Carolina stuff going on, and Wheeler wants to sound like he's objective when he's not. So I won't be objective. I'm gonna just say I want Tatis to be out till next Monday.
That sounds good. That makes sense.
Tom, you find a new way to make me laugh every Wednesday. I tell you what.
That's it, man. So we got the Women's College World Series starting up here for Oklahoma State. It's going to be exciting. I think they can do quite well. I think they can make a lot of noise. Well, they start tomorrow against Georgia. So buy or sell, Cowgirls softball scores 5 or more runs in tomorrow's opening game.
Well, they've been averaging just over 6 a game all season long. And they certainly have, this is what I said yesterday with the lineup. It reminds me a lot of baseball because 1 through 9, and then there's some younger players too, as we saw in that final game with Texas, that are stepping up. And
those DHs are dangerous.
Yeah, you've got power all over the place. You got players that are going to get on base, and then of course you mix that in with Carrie Eberle, who's virtually untouchable most of the time that she's out there. But I'm going to sell. I think at this point, this is a good Georgia team. Also, if you look at what Oklahoma State did in that last game against Texas, they only needed 2 runs. Okay, so it's not like with the way that Carrie Eberle pitches, I'm kind of expecting a low-scoring game here between these two teams, something else like that. Maybe not a shutout, but a low-scoring game to where you're able to get a 2-run victory, something like that, like a 3-1 or a 4-2, something like that, because of the way that she's going on the mound, holding batters to barely even getting on base, and then Oklahoma State kind of striking and maybe is all in one inning like it was against Texas. But I'll go ahead and sell under 5 in this first one. But yeah, it's absolutely something they can do because they've done it pretty much the entire season.
It kind of adds up to that. I mean, I don't know. I don't pretend to know the Georgia pitching rotation or what their starters like, but she must be pretty good for them to be Florida, right? I mean, Florida's a perennial powerhouse. And then, they're not going to probably get as much off of Eberle. And, speaking of the portal, they got 2 walking scouting reports from the Georgia transfers. So they ought to be able to tell Gajewski everything he needs to know, and the pitching coach what they need to know about every player and what they can and what they can't do. So I would think runs would be scarce maybe for Georgia. And let's just say the first time out maybe with some of these girls on the OSU side might be a little nervous. So I could see it being under 6. I could see it being, I think, as you said, Patrick, I could see a 3-1, 4-2 kind of game, and nothing of a lot of run variety. I don't know if it's going to be a rout or anything.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that too.
And it's interesting because you look at Georgia, and they beat Florida 2 straight, 4-0 and 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at what they did in conference. I mean, they were 7-17 in conference play. They were 34-21 overall. They just got hot late. They've won 5 straight. That's 2 in a super regional and 3 in the regional. They won 11-3, 1-0, and 10-9. But you go back through the season, and they they bled some runs. They bled some runs there. Alabama put up quite a few on them. Tennessee put up quite a few on them. OU, wow, that's just OU. So, but I would probably buy it. I think you look at the way OSU's played this year. Georgia's getting hot at the right time, but you look at the way Oklahoma State's played all year long. They have just been a run factory, home runs too. They have really launched the ball out of the park. They had to squeak through that super regional. Texas. That was the 7th game that they had played against Texas this season. And you're right. Eberle's got it going on. I'm really not too worried on that front. But the way Oklahoma State's played this year and the way they've put up runs behind Eberle, I'm with Tom. I don't necessarily know or think that it's going to be a rout. I don't really expect them to go out there and run rule them in game 1. But I could easily see Oklahoma State putting up 5 or 6 or 7 and it being a 7-3. 6-3, 6-2 kind of a game. So I would buy 5+.
And you saw how they can manufacture, and you got to be lucky. I mean, Gajewski will tell you how lucky they were against Texas in the game they clinched. You got to have a pitcher hit 2 of your batters to put the inning in motion, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't get that and you have to hit your way on, then perhaps the inning's different. Then you get a sack, which was well done. But a couple of hit batsmen, a sack, and then a slap hit, and you got 2 runs pretty much, you can manufacture, and I think that's the part of their game that doesn't get a whole lot of credit. You want to talk about everything that leaves the yard, and I don't know that Hall of Fame Stadium is that much bigger, but my memory kind of brings me back to it's not as confined as Cowgirl Stadium. I think there's a little bit more distance to Hall of Fame Stadium, at least and it's
newer now. They've put in $30 million over the past couple of seasons, so it's
I don't know if that added
it's
any
a lot
distance,
more expansive.
though. I don't know if that added, but it's
no, it didn't. But it's a lot more expansive. Cowgirl softball, the Cowgirl Stadium does have that real confined. They're right on top of you kind of feel, and this is real spread out.
So it could be, again, you threw some zeros in when they were talking about what Georgia's done of late. And there were a couple of zeros in there. I mean, you got to be halfway decent to shut people out in this day and age of softball and or baseball for that matter. So I would think it'd be first game out, everything on the line, nerves, all that. I could see it being a closely contested game as softball goes, maybe within a 3-2, 3-1 game.
Well, coming up next on the afternoon sports drive, I've got another great example of why the designated hitter has to be universal right now. Speaking of objections, there's no way Tom can object to this one. Find out what that is next on the afternoon sports drive. Welcome back into the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado, and Levi Peckinpah over there in the studio. We're live at Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling here, and you can call them at 405-780-6637. Another competitive advantage at Advantage is most HVAC places only offer service on your air conditioning or furnace, but Advantage has experts on heating, cooling, and plumbing. So that's another competitive advantage to meet the needs of your business, or if you are a homeowner, of course. Make sure you check them out online. YouNeedAdvantage.com. All right, so as you guys know, I am the one that holds the banner and leads the charge into action for the designated hitter to be universal.
Oh,
it is.
I thought you were talking about Instant Messenger. I thought you said I am holds the banner. I was like, Instant Messenger?
No, not I am, as in I am.
Okay.
Let me emphasize that.
I wasn't really paying attention.
I am the leader of this army, okay, for the Universal DH, and I'm a proud one. And those that oppose me are wrong and have been for a long time, and they continue to be, because the designated hitter is something that would make the game much more entertaining. But besides that, I saw another perfect example the other day, and unfortunately it had to do with my Cardinals because Jack Flaherty, who is not just one of the best pitchers on the Cardinals, is the best pitcher on the Cardinals, one of the best pitchers in the entire league, and he comes up to swing the bat, okay, against the Dodgers, and he's trying to go yard. I mean, he's trying to hit the ball a long way, which first of all is dumb for a pitcher to try to do because it rarely ever happens. You're just risking an injury, and Jack did that exact thing. He actually, what turned out to be an oblique problem, as Tom mentioned, the oblique. It seems to be a popular injury these days. Well, it's now a strain/tear is what they've labeled it as. So he could be out for quite some time, simply because he swung too hard. And you take a pitcher of that caliber out, and now what? He's a guy that the Cardinals can't afford to lose at this point. So I scream to the heavens, please, for crying out loud, can we get this finished and get the universal DH in the game so we can stop dealing with nonsense like this. It's either one or the other. You either get a situation where a pitcher gets hurt trying to swing the bat. Mostly, a big part of it is because they don't swing it that often anymore, so it's not as natural, and it's something that looks completely unnatural when they do it, and explosive movements like that. You end up losing a guy like Jack Flaherty, who's as talented as he is, and that's the worst of the worst. Or the other option is you get a guy that comes up and watches 3 pitches go by, and we move on to the next batter. It's just a waste of everybody's time at this point. But I thought, when I saw that, here we go. I hate for this to have to be an example I have to bring up, but it is another perfect one, and it is far beyond time. Out of all these stupid and ridiculous things that Major League Baseball has done to try and fix or improve the game, how in the world can the universal designated hitter not be at the top of the list?
Well, I'm going to come at it only this year from a different angle, because with my particular team, some of the better hitters on the club are pitchers. So what does that tell you? DeGrom might be one of the best hitters in the lineup, quite frankly. And that says a lot about the guys who are in the lineup every day. I see your arguments on the DH, even though, everybody in the world is wrong but you. But the fact is, you believe, as long as you believe it, Wheeler, we're in good shape. And when you start doubting you that, then we got
You're
problems.
finally starting to catch on, Tom, finally.
But I don't believe you, that's for sure. But the fact is, DHs do have some redeeming quality, yes. But I still think I like the fact that you eventually in the game you got to decide as a manager what you're going to do with that pitcher spot. It may, with some teams, it may be in the second inning when you're getting yourself handed to you. Or generally it's going to be 6th or 7th inning. Now that affects everything else you do strategy-wise. You're going to let my pitcher hit? Well, I need to get a run out of this thing, so no, I'm going to pitch hit, but then I'm going to bring somebody else into the pen. That changes the complexion of the game. Do I have good enough pinch hitters? When you just DH, you don't have those decisions to make. And I think those decisions, while maybe boring 90% of the time, because as we talked about, Taijuan Walker gets up there and he puts the bat literally on his shoulder and takes 3 and heads to the dugout. Now, what does that prove, right? You might as well just signal, hey, we're done. That's a strikeout. Let's get on to the next batter. I see where you're coming from there. But about half of me, though, still wants to see the strategy that's dictated by having to decide what you're going to do with a pitcher late in the game.
I would much rather have, if I were picking from a strategy standpoint, I'd much rather have back to normal and not the 3-batter minimum rule. I'd rather see that more than anything, and that's coming from a defensive standpoint a little bit too. But as Tom, you're right. When you talk about a guy like Taijuan Walker, and he's not the only one. I've seen this happen. We've seen this happen for years, but obviously more so again this season. Pitchers come up and have no interest in swinging the bat, and they're probably even told by the manager, hey, just go up there and if he walks you, great. If not, come back over here. It's no big deal. And then that's basically what you want out of your pitcher at the dish. But you had a good idea the other day. I'm in with you on this. With all the other nonsense in baseball right now, why not just allow pitchers who want to just stand up there like we talked about, say, we'll just take this out. Nah, it's fine. Let's move on. I mean, it's something that we should just institute into this game with the way that it's going. But I'm telling you guys, it is going to happen next year when they do the collective bargaining and they talk about all that. It's going to be something that is implemented, but it's something I would, if I were choosing out of all the strategy, I can understand, Tom, I get it. But at this point, I am so fed up with seeing the injuries and the lack of effort and all that going into it that it doesn't matter as much to me anymore. The reward doesn't outweigh the risk, if you will, with everything going on in this situation. I think it's far beyond time. But as you know, Tom, it is coming down the pipe, whether everybody likes it or not.
Especially since it'll keep some people in business, right? Keep employed.
Absolutely.
There'll be some players who really can't play every day that. If you have a DH, that's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the plate 4 times, and maybe you got to run the bases. We'll expect a little bit more of you, maybe, than just swinging. So you may have to run the bases, but if you're not a good base runner, they can always take you out and put another DH in. So, it'll create more job security for some. I don't know, though, and I'm just looking at a big picture. There's just a part of me that likes the fact that a pitcher coming up in his key spot who's not a good hitter, who can't bunt it, now, all of a sudden, you're forced to take him out of the game when you might not want to have taken him out of the game, and then that affects other things, bullpen, who you're going to put in, who you're going to pinch hit, who you're going to pinch run, all that things, and I think you're removing some of that strategy by just having a universal DH.
Yeah, that's my thing. If pitchers want to hit, then they should be allowed to hit. That's my thing. Is like, I don't have a problem with a universal DH. But it needs to be in there that if Madison Bumgarner comes up and he wants to hit because he can, then that should be, you should be able to not have a DH and let the pitcher hit.
Yeah, but you see, that's the thing, is that there's been a few guys that are decent at times,
and that's why you leave it up to the pitcher.
Even then, it's a very rare to see a pitcher come up big. That's why I would tell them, because there would be guys like him, maybe not at this point in his career, but previously.
Right.
Adam Wainwright's the same way. You go down the list of guys that could slug that were pitchers, and you're thinking, I don't care how upset it makes them. Like, you're done. You're not going to swing. Sorry, this is not part of the game anymore. We may use you at some point as in a rare pinch hit appearance late in an extra inning matchup or something. But that's pretty much it, dude. And I wouldn't be upset. I want to ask you guys this real quick as well. Because it was going to happen today for Cincinnati. Unfortunately, their game got rained out. They were going to do a second opening day. Are you guys in favor of the idea of teams having second opening days because they're now getting to full capacity and basically do all the festivities that you would have with a full crowd?
So it goes back to the dedication of Oberate for me. I don't have a problem if the organization wants to do some kind of ceremony because they can have 100% capacity. This is the first time you can have a full stadium, and there's no question it will be. But I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be labeled as opening day. I think if you want to have, you want to have some fireworks, or you want to have a special giveaway or something like that, and you have festivities and stuff like that, I think that you should mark the fact that you get to have opening, like a full capacity crowd, label it that, we're not, it's not opening day, it's, full capacity night or something like that. But labeling it as opening day is really stupid. Like, you don't dedicate a stadium a year and a half, almost, a year and 3/4 after you were supposed to originally do it. You've already played games, but you have a ceremony, but you don't label it opening day.
Well, I think we're dealing with maybe apples and oranges here in terms of O'Brate and Major League stadiums. If you have a celebration of if you will, of a second opening day, which obviously it's not. I mean, it's not opening day. But it is opening day for fans who couldn't get there for opening day, in theory, right? Which means there's more money spent, there's more things bought, there's more concessions bought, there's more hats bought, all the things that major league clubs need to have happen to pay the payroll. I mean, if teams want to do it, I don't know that it bothers me to that extent. If that's what they want to do, it's a matter of business. You see businesses in all walks of life, have openings and second grand openings and things like that just to get people in. So, I mean, it really wouldn't bother me all that much. Not as much as calling, dedicating O'Brate, after playing 38 games or whatever. And then that to me wasn't a dedication. You already dedicated it. celebrated it is one thing, but I don't know. I'd have to think on that, but off the top of my head, it doesn't bother me all that much. I don't know if every team's going to do it. Have you? I mean, just Cincinnati so far? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't affect me. I mean, I'm with you on that, Tom. But I think it's foolish to have an opening, an actual opening day again.
There's been talks with other teams that are planning on doing some sort of, and that's probably a strange way to call it opening day. Again, maybe like I said, the Reds were doing like an opening day 2.0 thing. But the reason I'm in favor of it is because I thought when opening day came around, we should have had full crowds everywhere. Like at that point, that was my opinion. I thought we should have come in with full crowds and been completely back to normal. So I'm all for let's get what we missed out on a couple of months ago here at the beginning of June. Kind of kick things off if we can. If you call it something else, call it the
like full capacity
whatever
day
it is, full capacity day, whatever. We're bringing everybody back. No one has the masks on. We're all good. We got a full crowd. Then make it a big deal because you missed out on that virtually 2 years in a row. You didn't really get to do a ton of the stuff that you did all season long in a normal year. So I'm all for it, and I hope that more teams do dive into it.
I'm cool with the do something. Your fans are back, your stadium's full. That's cool. Just don't label it as opening day.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's where I'm at. I think we're pretty much on the same page. When we come back on the afternoon sports drive, we will finish things out and tell you what we learned. Coming up next, Triple Play Sports Radio. Welcome back in Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler, Zach Lancaster, Tom Dorado, and Levi Peckinpah. Vantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is where we're at, 405-780-6637. To finish out the show, we're going to tell you what we learned.
The day is coming to an end. Time to find out if these two got any smarter. Let's find out what the guys learned today on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Well, I learned something today.
All right, so I learned that, this is partially something I already knew, but Pro Football Talks Mike Florio continues to be next level bozo. So why do I say that? Well, we've all seen and heard so far some of the Naomi Osaka stuff, right?
Yeah.
In tennis, refusing to talk to the media, all that stuff. People have had their takes. So this is what Mike Florio tweeted. I propose a one-year experiment for the NFL. Players would not be required to speak after games. I predict that 99% of the players would still choose to do so, and that in any event, 100% of reporters would still have plenty to write and talk about. I was like, dude, this is, how long have you covered the NFL? Like, clearly this was just a tweet to stir it up, because 99%
Would not do it.
of players would still willingly continue to go out there and talk to the media.
That right there is, and I'm a little biased on the situation because I did almost die, but that's like the sports reporters that were out there begging for sports to be canceled.
And he was one of them, by the way.
Like, dude, that's your job.
Yeah.
I get trying to keep people safe. The last thing I wanted as someone that covers Oklahoma State was no football season, because that means no money for me. Like, I want people to be safe, and I wanted myself to be safe, but the last thing I wanted was for no sports. The last thing any sports reporter wants or should be saying that they want is an experimental players don't have to show up for press conferences. Because then you're just talking about, well, this is what happened during the game.
Yeah.
You get your stories throughout the week from availabilities.
Exactly. It's live reaction, and 99%. I mean, that's nothing but hot take nonsense. It's barely any players would report with the media, barely any at all. And I've always thought that it's really stupid to not speak to the media. I mean, it's part of your job, and if you're going to be upset about it, just pull a Marshawn Lynch and go in there and make a fool out of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, say, look, I'm here, not to, so I don't get fined. I'll talk to you. I'll just answer and say yes or no, if anything. But at least show up. So I've always thought that was dumb. The Naomi Osaka stuff, you can have your opinions on all that too and whatever, but it's part of your job, plain and simple, if you're a pro athlete, to speak to the media. And when that was put out there, I was like, come on, 99%, what a joke. Have you ever watched the NFL, dude? Like, we all know.
More than half would elect not to do it.
Easily more than half. And most of them would be big stars. I mean, plain and simple.
If we're up to Aaron Rodgers, he'd never talk to the media again.
He'd be one of them. I really believe that.
No doubt. So, Tom, I'm sure you've seen this, and I would love to get your take on this. We found out, I think it came out yesterday is when it was, but it really took off today. The Oakland Athletics minor league system, they had a contract with a food vendor is what it was, and photos leaked from the advocates for minor leaguers, MILB advocates on Twitter. Players in the Oakland A's organization shared these photos of their recent post-game meals. There was a cheese sandwich with a little bit of lettuce and a really crappy looking tomato, and then it looks like maybe a chicken fajita burrito or a taco it was a huge tortilla with like 2 itty bitty pieces of meat and a ton of banana peppers or bell peppers. Like that's the meals that these minor league players are forced to eat. A cheese sandwich. They don't even get, like we were talking about during the break, like the middle schooler and high school kids that don't pay their cafeteria bills. They they wouldn't even feed them that. They at least get like peanut butter sandwiches, and you're giving minor league players a cheese sandwich. Good God.
Well, it may be a reflection of today's economy, but I would think after last year, they're probably happy to have the cheese sandwich, number one, since they didn't have a minor league. They didn't get a chance to play and make some money. And number two, I suspect most of these minor leaguers probably have enough pocket change that on the way home, they could stop by McDonald's or they could stop.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, is they're not – there's the outrage from these players is through the roof, and it's not just the A's organization that's furious about it. Apparently, the organization didn't know that this food vendor was serving this food.
Well, how could they not know what the players are eating? I mean,
because it was a third-party vendor. Like the team knew it, but this third-party vendor was contracted to just provide after game meals. And so, like, the organization apparently they terminated the contract several weeks ago, but like it's just now getting out. Like, it's your job as an organization. First of all, these minor leaguers are getting like $11,000 a year. they're having to work like 3 jobs to try to sustain their family, and it's their job to provide fuel for their athletes. And I'm sorry, but a cheese sandwich with a cruddy looking tomato, like it's funny because you have all these athletes coming out. I'm like, man, I got people that I know that are in prison that eat better than a cheese sandwich.
Well, I think I'm glad they did what they did. I mean, they probably need to be an ex-vendor, right, if that's what they would do.
Oh, yeah.
And probably wish that they had researched it a little bit better before they started making cheese sandwiches. That is crazy, as well as, and not everybody eats this way, but as well as major leaguers on down. I mean, they have a spread. I don't know if they still have the spread they used to have, but those clubhouse spreads were unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's the main thing. They're like, we're not demanding, Ruth Chris's or anything. We're not wanting steak and lobster every single night, but I mean, goodness, chicken strips, something better than a cheese sandwich. And it was just like white bread with a piece of Kraft single on it.
It looked really terrible. I honestly thought of that. That reminded me of pictures of prison food that I've seen.
If anything, just grill it.
I think as a manager, I'd like to have that liberty that if a guy stumped the place up, that's what I would give him. That's
See, it should be a punishment.
Exactly.
It should be a punishment.
You
not
guys
an
go out here and
meal.
eat the good stuff, and you have a cheese sandwich, Levi, with a crappy looking tomato. Like,
you were 0 for 4, bud.
said.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom, if you go ahead.
I was going to say, I learned last night, and it's something we all know, and it's kind of a serious thing, but you got to watch what you say on an open mic. You got to watch what you say on a broadcast. Even if you don't have a nasty bone in your body, which I don't know about Bob Brindley, he always came across as a manager as being like your uncle, and a guy that you wanted to be around as a player and as a manager. I think it's radio. He does radio for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
And Mets and Diamondbacks had themselves a little discussion on the field, and benches emptying and all that last night, and I guess it was the night before. And he made the comment. I guess he got his emotions got carried away a little bit. Our boy Lindor, who I get on Lindor all the time, but he's making $480 million, so he'd be able to get on a guy who's making $480 million, right? He's hitting to the tune of 180 or whatever it is he's hitting, okay? But he has a do-rag on his head, which, Okay. And I'm sorry, one Lindor is Stroman who has to do
Yeah,
Stroman. And I think Brenly was trying to get the point across that Stroman's no Tom Seaver. And he's commented that I bet Tom Seaver didn't have a do-rag on his head when he got into discussions with other teams. Now, on the surface, it doesn't – I don't think it gets a lot of people rankled and upset. But it got enough people upset on social media that I think Brenly took a roasting and probably had to apologize for saying that. And it was Stroman, not Lindor. Lindor's just trying to figure out how to get above 200. So he didn't have to worry about do-rags or anything like that. But Stroman took offense to it. I mean, so he came back at him. So what appeared to be, as we have seen 100 million times already in today's society, what appears to be an innocent comment or not has any kind of vindictive or anything that you won't hurt people, we can see that it'll come back and haunt you. And apparently Brenly had to come up with a lot of apologies. And I don't know, maybe you've seen more on social media than I have, Patrick, but that kind of stuff might get you suspended or off the broadcast.
Yeah, I saw Stroman's tweet, and he of course used the phrasing of racial undertones.
That's right. Yes.
That's what set it off. I seriously doubt there was any of that intentional in what he said. It seemed when I heard it, like you mentioned, it seemed like a pretty harmless comment, and I don't think it would have gotten any type of negative review had Stroman not added that language to it. And I think that's completely overblown. But it's like you said, it's something that everyone has to watch out for now because they will come after you for it, and some people will force you to apologize. That includes businesses and places of employment too. So yeah, I saw that. I think it's completely overblown and ridiculous, but that is where we are right now in this sports society mix. We got to get to where are they now coming up here with Tom. This is the afternoon sports drive. That's Tom Dorado, Levi Peckinpah back in the studio, Zach Lancaster. I'm Patrick Wheeler. Thank you to Advantage Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Where are they now with Tom Dorado coming up here next on Triple Play Sports Radio?